People have been fascinated by life in other parts of the universe ever since humans first looked up and saw the stars. Sometimes alien life seemed the only explanation for the strange and horrific occurrences on our own planet. Occurrences like that in a village in Canada earlier this century. Lake Anjikuni, Canada, winter 1930. The sky was purple, black and endless. The stars burned cold as splinters of ice. The wind seemed to be even colder. It stung the faces of the two men as they staggered home under the weight of the dead animal they had slung over their back. Ice began to form in the beard of the old man, Armand Laurent. His son, Raoul, stumbled behind and cursed the dark that made him trip on the tree root. A mile to go and the shelter of the cabin. 10 minutes walking and 10 more minutes for a fire to thaw his aching eyes. At first, Raoul thought he was seeing things. He thought his eyes were playing tricks as the trail turned blood orange in front of him. But his father stopped and looked around too. Even his father's frosted beard was sparkling in the light. Armand was looking over his son's shoulder. Raoul had never seen his father show fear. The old man's eyes were wide and glittering with terror. Raoul dropped the frozen carcass on the snow-covered path and turned stiffly. He blinked into the sky. The stars had vanished. Another light, much brighter, had swallowed them. A brilliant bar of light, as bright as a glowing hot poker. The light hung in the sky about 20 miles to the north. Slowly at first, then faster. It began to move. It began to move towards the trappers. Raoul snatched the dead animal and stumbled down the trail. His father tumbled after him. They didn't stop until they reached the safety of the log cabin. But by the time the light had shrunk to a star-sized dot, then vanished. Armand slammed the door and bolted it fast, as if the bolt could keep the terror out. Next morning they rose and ate. Then they skinned the trapped animal. They went about their lives like two men walking in their sleep. They didn't speak about what they had seen. 3 days later, their silent work was disturbed by a knocking at the door. The man seemed to be knocking on the door of the wooden cabin with something metal. "Mr. Laurent, Royal Canadian Mounted Police here. Could I see you, sir?" Amanda pulled the bolts, lifted the latch, and squinted out of the gloomy cabin into the snow-bright evening light. "Good evening, Mr. Laurent," the young Mountie said. His face was red with the frosted air, and ice was dusting his pack, hat, and overcoat. He stamped his feet on the frozen ground and tried to smile a stiff grin. His weary horse blew clouds of steam into the still air. Evening," a man nodded. His sharp blue eyes looked down at the metal object in the Mountie's hand. It was a gun. He started back. The Mountie looked down and laughed. "Just use it as a door knocker. You don't seem to have one." "Don't need one," a man replied gruffly. "Don't get many visitors when you're 20 miles from the nearest town." The Mountie nodded, looked past the old man into the warm darkness of the cabin. "I was just wondering if you could help me," he said. "Help you with your inquiries, is that it?" Amanda asked sharply. "Look, mister, I'm just a poor trapper, catching and skinning animals for a living. I haven't broken any laws round here." The Mountie shook his head wearily. No, Mr. Laurent, nothing like that. I'm just not too sure of the trail ahead, and I thought you might be able to help me. They reckon you know every inch for 100 miles around here, sir." "Yep," the man nodded. Couldn't help relaxing a little bit. "Where are you headed?" "Lake Anjikuni, sir." "An Eskimo village? You're half a day's ride from there. You'll never make it before nightfall, son." "You reckon I could stay with my horse here for the night?" Old Armand looked doubtful. He rubbed his thin grey beard. "I'd pay, of course," said Mountie. Armand's face lightened. "Raoul," he called over his shoulder, "take this gentleman's horse and put it in the barn. Give it oats, hay, and fresh water." Raoul hurried to obey his father as the old man led him away into the log cabin and the warmth of the stove. With the horse stabled and a good meal inside him, the young mounted policeman seemed keen to talk to the Laurents. "Duval's my name, Sergeant Alan Duval." "And what brings you out here?" Raoul asked. "We don't see many Mounties round these parts." "We had a report from a trapper in this area, a guy called Joe LaBelle. You know him?" Of course, we sometimes work together, Armand said. Seems Joe LaBelle came into town yesterday with some crazy story about people going missing from the Eskimo village by Lake Anjakuni. I was sent out to investigate. Took me longer to get here than I reckoned. You'll know Lake Anjakuni, Mr. Armand? Sure, the Eskimo hunter and trap and trade, just like me. And you don't know anything about missing people? The Mountie asked. No, the trapper said uneasily. They probably went out to see the lights, Raoul said quickly. It was the first time the young man had admitted he'd seen anything. His father tried to give him a warning glance. It was too late. Lights? The Mountie asked. Lights in the sky, Raoul explained. Didn't Joe LaBelle tell you about them? The old trapper sighed. You'll probably think we're crazy. It happens, you know. Men out here alone, they start to see things. The Mountie leaned forward, and the red light of the stove gleamed in his eyes. Just tell me what you saw, Mr. Laurent. Well, it was about 3 days ago. Well, or 3 nights, rather. We'd just emptied the last traps on the ridge and were coming in for supper. We were in the trees on the slope when we saw an orange glow. We thought the cabin was on fire, Raoul cut in. Nothing else round here to make a light like that. But we could see it was the light in the sky. It was huge. Never seen anything like it before, Armand said. Hope I never see anything like it again. What shape was this thing? Sergeant Duval asked. Cigar, Raoul said. Cylinder, Armand said at the same time. The father and son looked at each other annoyed. To tell you the truth, it changed as it moved, Raoul said. So, this bright light was moving. Which direction? The Mountie asked. Across the sky to the north, the trapper said. North? Isn't that the direction of Lake Anjakuni? That's right, Armand nodded. The Mountie rose to his feet and stretched. If you guide me to the village tomorrow, I'll make sure the mounted police pay you double. Mind if I just take this bed over here? Fine, Armand said, and found some blankets for his guests. The next morning was dull, and a freezing wind came down from the north. The 3 men had to ride into it. After 2 weary hours, they crested the ridge that overlooked the slate-grey lake and huddled in the wooden houses. The old trapper's sharp eyes narrowed, and he squinted through his red-rimmed eyes. I've never seen anything like that before, he breathed. Something wrong, Mr. Laurent? The Mountie asked. Amanda couldn't only shake his head with wonder for the first few minutes. There's nothing there. The Mountie gave an uncomfortable laugh. Well, there's the village. But it's deserted, Armand said. We're over a mile away, Mr. Laurent. How can you tell? The old man gave a bad-tempered wave of his hand. Not one whiff of smoke from any of those chimneys. And the wind's coming from that direction. We'd hear them from here. The sled dogs are always barking. The Mountie shrugged. I know Joe LaBelle said they were people missing. I didn't know he meant everyone had gone. They can't have, Raoul said. There's over 1,200 people in that village. Let's go and have a closer look, Armand said, and led the way down the slippery trail into the village. 10 minutes later, they reached the first house. The Mountie jumped off his horse and hammered on the first door. There was no answer. Must be out on some hunting trip, he suggested. Armand Laurent shook his head. Look, there's a rifle leaning in the doorway. No Eskimo would ever leave the village without it. Even if he wasn't hunting, he might meet some bears on the trail. The Mountie put his shoulder to the door and pushed. The weak lock splintered. The house was as cold inside as it was out. A leather coat lay on the bed. It was half mended. 2 bone needles lay beside it. They must have left in a hurry, he said. Raoul was exploring the second room. A pot of stew in here. Caribou by the looks of it. I could use a bite, his father said. Not of this stew. It's been cold for days. Raoul put a hand to the ashes of the fireplace and shook his head. No fire here for 3 days at least. 3 days, the Mountie said, coming through the doorway behind him. 3 days since you saw that light, wasn't it, Mr. Laurent? Our man just nodded. They left in a hurry, didn't bother eating when they went. They didn't take overland trail or they'd have taken their rifles. Well, Maybe they got scared by the light and crossed the lake, the Mountie suggested. The three men left the house and crunched down the deserted snow-covered streets. No human tracks broke the crisp white mantle of fresh snow. They turned towards the lake edge and stopped before they'd even reached the small wooden landing stages. Boats and kayaks crowded the mooring post. "Must be very nearly every boat in the village there," Armand said. 1,200 people didn't leave across this lake. Sergeant Duval looked up at the snow-filled clouds. "We got time to check the trail out of the village?" he asked. "Sure. This way," Armand said. He led the way through the village. There was no sound, no movement, no warmth in a place that had overflowing with life just a week before. They found the dog sleds first. They had been tied to the trees on the edge of the town. They'd been abandoned. The dogs had died of cold and hunger. The Mountie was sickened by the sight. "I'd better get back and report this," he said. "If we leave now, I could get back to base before night." But Armand was looking back at the village. One field on the edge was not lying smoothly under the snow. It was pitted with deep trenches that were only half filled by the drifts. He walked towards it silently, leading his horse. When Sergeant Duval reached his side, he was standing, staring at the field. "What is it, Mr. Laurent?" Armand pointed at the empty troughs. "It's not just the living that have gone from the village," he croaked. "This here was the graveyard, and it looks like every single grave has been emptied." He looked at the grey sky as small needles of stinging snow fell silently from it. "Just what in hell's name was that light?" he asked. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police searched with every available man and found nothing. They searched for years, never found a clue to the mysterious disappearance of 1,200 people. People who believed in unidentified flying objects think there is a link with the lights seen in the sky at the same time. No one else has ever been able to come up with a more sensible explanation for the 1,200 missing Eskimos. The end.